It is Monday, the 11th of May. It is week X in quarantine, lockdown, online learning, school time. Last week, you finished utilitarianism. You should have handed your final evaluation as to whether or not your historical case was justified or not, according to utilitarianism. And thank you for those, and thank you for your continued hard work, patience, and flexibility over the last few weeks. Just going to give you a little bit of an overview as to what is going to happen in this video. I'm going to go over utilitarianism very briefly, and then I'm going to move on to explain what we are going to do in the next few weeks, and this week in particular. Okay, alright. So, utilitarianism is a moral theory, is a normative ethical theory, okay, because it tells us what we should do. Now, according to utilitarianism, what we should do is that action which brings about the greatest happiness for the greatest number of people, which is generally called the principle of utility. Okay, now Bentham, Jeremy had a way of working out whether this would be something good or something bad, which he called the philosophic calculus. You might also find it called the hedonic calculus on the internet. Okay, and he had 7 sections, which I cannot remember, for calculating the good or bad outcomes of an action. And you use that to help you calculate whether or not your historical case was good or bad. And you also looked at John Stuart Mill, who differed from Bentham in a couple of ways. Specifically, he distinguished between things called higher and lower pleasures. A higher pleasure is one that is requiring our mental faculties and requires us to think about things, whereas lower pleasures often involve kind of bodily pleasures, you know. So one of the quotes you looked at on the sheet was, better to be Socrates dissatisfied than a fool satisfied. And he also made a reference to a pig. Now the reason he does that is because he's saying that a pig can be satisfied like rolling in mud and having sex and eating lots of like rotten apples, you know. That's not kind of thing to aspire to. Yeah, it's pleasure, great, but it's not that great a pleasure. Whereas he is saying that things such as Shakespeare, like Michelin-star restaurants, Mozart, Vivaldi, things that require you to think about them in order to gain the pleasure from them, those are the higher pleasures. Okay, so he makes a distinguishment between quality over quantity. Okay, the quality of the pleasure is important. And he thought Bentham's calculus was too kind of hedonistic in this sense. They focus too much on like base pleasures. So they differ in that sense, but there are a couple of ways in which they are very, very similar in that they both focus on pleasure over pain, and they both focus on the consequences of an action. Okay, and this is really important when we're coming into future weeks because they focus on the outcome of an action. Okay, so that utilitarianism is often referred to as a consequentialist theory. Okay, it refers and thinks about the consequences above anything else. And this is important because we are now going to look at deontology. Okay, and deontology focuses on the intention behind an action. Okay, the outcome of an action is irrelevant to what is going on. Okay, what should determine what you do is the intention, and something is good because it is the right thing to do, not because it brings pleasure, not because it might bring a happy outcome for a couple of people. Okay, you do stuff because it is the right thing to do. Okay, now deontology is basically talking about doing your duty. Okay, this is the right thing to do, it is therefore my duty to do it. Okay, which leads us into what we're going to do this week. Okay, we are not going to go into loads of detail on theory right at the moment. Okay, we are going to focus solely on the nature of duty and what duties are. So, in your meet sessions this week, you are going to go over a presentation like this. It looks exactly like this because it's the same one. Okay, and I'm not going to go over that because you're going to do that yourselves in your meet sessions with your respective teachers. Okay, but you're just going to be exploring the idea of duty, what that is, where does it come from, how do we get them, what are your duties as an individual, what are your parents' duties, etc. What is duty, basically. Okay, and whilst you are during that meet session, I would like you to have open this document, okay, called Exploring Duty. And what the idea is here is for you to be able to answer these questions as you go in the meet sessions. We are not requiring you to spend hours and hours outside of the class answering these questions. You will discuss these ideas within the class, and then you will make your answers on this piece of paper, okay? I'm going to upload it to Classroom in such a way that you get your own copy of this document. You answer the questions on the document, and then you re-upload the document as your hand-in for next Monday, the 18th of May, okay? So that is it for this week, okay? You will have this document uploaded to Classroom along with the presentation, and when you have your meet session, have this document open and answer the questions as you go. You might not be able to get them all down in the meet session. That's fine. Okay, you might have to use a little bit of extra time. The idea is that we are reducing the amount of time you are spending outside the class on this work. Okay, so if you're spending like 3 hours, stop. I'm not asking you to do that. Okay, so that is that. All right, we are done with utilitarianism for now. We're moving on to deontology, which focuses on the intention behind an action as opposed to the consequences, and focuses on what our duty is and where those duties come from. Okay, if you have any questions, please email myself, Mr. Parmesano, Miss Layla. Okay, post your questions on the question document to be answered, and get in touch. Okay, the only stupid question is an unasked one. Have a great day. Look after yourselves. Don't get coronavirus.